Okay, Sunday supplement part 2. Can you believe I got this $10 bill like that in my change? No one noticed that. I really think that's cool as a piece of currency art. That's quite well done, and it made it through a normal economic transactions. Made it all the way to me. If any Department of the Treasury people, Treasury officers are watching this, I did not deface this $10 bill. I received it that way. It's part of my permanent collection of cool oddities. So where are we? Constraints. Joshua Waikin, the idea of the deepening of the chess game. How many levels of the game can you experience? And that's very relevant to NLP, because NLP, I think, is generally treated as a commodified kind of more of a product, and it's kind of like a licensed download or something, and you kind of play the song, but it just you get it on 1 or 2 levels instead of this. Waitkin's experience of living a life in chess, he's talking about these many levels. And one of these areas that really does explore that, I think, was Robert Dilts in his Sleight of Mouth, and he laid out the basic paradigm, the basic pattern, the kind of the blueprint for this. And then it is delivered, I think, in a very weak way. I think a lot of NLP is sort of weak ideas delivered weakly, because nobody's demanding any more than that, and people will tolerate it, and that seems to satisfy them. But not everybody, I know. I know there's a lot of unsatisfied customers out there that want something more. If you're a follower of American history, especially the history, you might say, of the late 20th century, there was a movement, a Black Power movement that swept America in the late 60s and the early 70s. And in that movement, there were many questions that are very similar to the kind of NLP questions, which makes me wonder if there wasn't actually a certain amount of the kind of thinking, and I would call this revolutionary thinking, coming from the Black Power movement, especially the Black Panthers, which actually was intellectually radical. It was being promoted in the media, and the media, of course, is a master of framing. And framing issues, and which issues do we take seriously, which issues are just sort of amusing sideshows, what's part of the necessary, as what the situationist philosophers in France, like Guy Debord, talked about, the spectacle. What is the spectacle and what is substance? Well, there was this dude, he was a guy from Trinidad, really interesting, fiery, public intellectual, Stokley Carmichael. I don't know how many people even remember the name Stokley Carmichael. But I think what Stokley Carmichael understood was, in order to achieve a presence, really, in the kind of in the conversation, in the social and political conversation, you had to engage the public kind of on the level of the spectacle. He understood that. He really got in a way that I think maybe the previous generation didn't understand. And the previous generation wanted to work through rational and intellectual processes. And guys like Stokley Carmichael understood getting the message over was very much a matter of working with the theatrics and kind of playing the system's need for this constant feed of sort of the outrageous hyperreal. And so in a certain sense, the Black Panthers seem to be a very early and self-consciously developed hyperreal expression of a philosophy, which merged very well with the media, the media sphere's spectacle need of sort of the hyperreal phenomenon. And But within that, there was a payload, and Carmichael actually had some very good ideas about definition and how a leader had to define. The purpose of the leader was to define the context, to define the meaning. And he said, those who have the power to define, they are the masters. He understood that power was not simply a matter of overt force, of overt physical force, but power was very much a function of belief and definition as well. So it's very curious to me that coming a little bit after that, through academia and through the sort of social ferment of the time, some of the so-called beginning ideas of NLP start to percolate and coalesce, and with Bateson and Erickson and Richard and John and Dilts and all these people are kind of bouncing off each other. But I'm sure in the background was this idea that reality and definitions, or realities and beliefs, had a very interesting, complex, sometimes vexed, sometimes smooth and transparent relationship, probably like a lot of marriages out there. So I was wondering, did this very rhetorical idea of the relationship of rhetoric and reality kind of create the underpinning or the foundation for Robert Dilts and A Sleight of Mouth? We could work backwards through Robert Dilts' 14 points. I almost feel like now I'm quoting from Mao's little red book, and he's like the 14 sayings of Chairman Mao Zedong. I'm sure that's going to go over real well in some quarters, especially the ultra-rightist NLP, hyper-nationalist, pure blood and soil movement, wherever they may exist. This is NLP stormtroopers. And so the 14th point, the 14th quote of Chairman Mao here is the idea of the meta-beliefs or meta-frames. And so the idea of a meta-belief is this: a meta-belief is a belief about a belief. What you believe about beliefs, like what are the properties of beliefs? What are the effects of having beliefs? How do you manipulate beliefs? How are beliefs changeable? And what happens if you change them? And what constitute beliefs? So in order to talk about beliefs, you have to have a powerful theory of belief, and you have to have beliefs or theories or presuppositions or assumptions, and all of these are different kinds of beliefs that just operate sort of in different time frames and at different depths. So an assumption can be just kind of a little belief at the moment that's something you kind of assembled from what you just experienced, where some very deeply held universal cosmic belief can be used to organize the entire universe. So we talk about beliefs, but we talk about beliefs in NLP, I think, in a weak and shallow and often in kind of a trivial way. They're just all beliefs. But how Stokley Carmichael was talking about belief, and how that belief change work caused kind of, a major psychological freak out among large sectors of, kind of the American middle class mentality. It's like they never heard rhetoric like this before. Okay, now, before I sign off, have you noticed where we've gone with the logical level? Step back and think about, we went from one level, we went very specific, we talked about specifics, generalities, specifics within generalities, back to generalities, back to specifics. So please do, as you're learning what I'm talking about, also think of what I'm saying to you on a process level, okay? Where did I go specific? Where did we break it down into fine grain? Where did we put those fine grains back together into a larger general theory or way of thinking? And then where did we take off from that to build smaller deductive cases for various points? And how did some of those other basic points support or act as foundations or reference, or as they say in philosophy, warrants? How did those warrant higher level abstractions coming off of that? So, okay, did you follow all my little rhetorical trickery with that thing I just delivered? I hope that's useful for you, and I think that's it for Sunday.